A Ford dealer in Texas right now has over 300 trucks sitting on his lot that he cannot move. A dealer in Michigan is telling customers their custom Super Duty order has been pushed back. Again, for the third time. A dealer in Ohio waited 6 months for a replacement engine on a truck a customer bought brand new. And somewhere in Kentucky, thousands of finished Super Duty trucks sat in a holding facility, unable to be delivered because they were not actually finished. Ford built them, Ford painted them, Ford just could not ship them. And right now, this week, in 2026, none of that is stopping Ford from advertising its trucks as tough, capable, and built for the people who get things done. This is not a rumor. This is not a hit piece. Every single fact you're about to hear is documented, reported, and real. And it matters because the crisis is not contained to one truck, one factory, or one bad quarter. It is spreading. It started on the factory floor, moved to the supply chain, hit the dealer lot, crossed into the used car market, and it is now sitting at the negotiating table between a buyer doing real math and a dealer who does not have good answers. A pricing problem becomes a buyer problem. A buyer problem becomes a dealer problem. A dealer problem becomes an incentive problem. An incentive problem hits production. And through the whole chain, the people stuck absorbing the fallout are not executives in Dearborn. They are the dealers who have to sell the story and the customers who have to live with the payment. 7 problems, each one serious on its own. Together, they form a picture that Ford absolutely does not want you to see before you walk into a dealership. By the time we get to number 1, you are going to look at that blue oval badge very differently. 7, the Maverick tariff trap. The Ford Maverick was genuinely a great idea, affordable, practical. A compact hybrid truck that could get 40 miles per gallon in the city and actually fit in a parking garage. Ford could not build them fast enough when they launched. The waiting lists were real, buyers were excited, and the price starting under $25,000 was the entire point. The Maverick was Ford saying, not everyone needs a full-size monster. Here is something smart and affordable and still useful. People loved it. And then the tariffs arrived. The Maverick is built in Mexico at Ford's Cuautitlán plant, not in Michigan, not in Ohio. And when sweeping auto tariffs hit Mexican-built vehicles in 2025, the math that made the Maverick special stopped working. The prices went up. Not all at once, quietly, gradually. A few $100s on this trim. An option package reshuffled on that one. The starting price that made the Maverick a conversation changer quietly became something else entirely. Here is what Ford will not put in a press release. The tariff burden on a Mexican-built vehicle does not disappear. It lives in every unit, in every transaction, every month, every year. Ford keeps building the Maverick where it currently builds it. Ford can absorb some of that cost, the dealer absorbs some, but ultimately the buyer pays. And when the buyer is paying for a small truck specifically because they wanted something affordable and the affordable part is gone, the whole reason to buy it disappears. And that lands directly on the dealer. The Maverick brought a new kind of buyer into Ford showrooms. A buyer who otherwise might have looked at a used truck, a crossover, something sensible. The Maverick was the door that let Ford capture that buyer. When the price climbs, that door closes and the dealer loses a sale category that does not simply switch to an F-150. That buyer walks out and does not come back at all. The Maverick is still a well-engineered vehicle. But right now, the value proposition that made it special is being quietly dismantled by tariff economics. And Ford has not told you that clearly. They are hoping you do not notice until after you sign. Have you priced out a Maverick recently? What did you find? Drop it in the comments because I think a lot of people are getting a very uncomfortable surprise at the dealership right now. 6, the EcoBoost Shadow, the engine that keeps coming back to haunt Ford. Ford built its modern truck identity around the EcoBoost name. Smaller, turbocharged, more efficient, still powerful. It was a genuinely smart engineering direction. And when Ford put the 2.7-liter EcoBoost in the F-150, the performance numbers were real. The fuel economy numbers were real. On paper, everything worked, and on a healthy engine, it still works. That is the honest answer. When the EcoBoost is running right, it is a capable, impressive powertrain. But Here is the conversation that happens in truck forums, in repair shops, and in fleet maintenance departments every single day. What happens when it is not healthy? The 3.5-liter EcoBoost has developed a well-documented reputation for cam phaser wear, which is a variable valve timing component that degrades under high load and high mileage conditions. Carbon buildup on intake valves from direct injection, intercooler condensation that under certain conditions can cause hydrolocking. These are not theoretical concerns. They are sitting in class action lawsuit filings. They are sitting in NHTSA complaint databases. They are sitting in the service records of trucks with 70,000 and 80,000 miles on them. And here is the part that makes truck owners genuinely furious. You bought this truck to work. You bought it to tow. The spec sheet said it was built for exactly the load you are putting on it. And then at 70,000 miles, a cam phaser starts to go, and suddenly you are having a conversation about a repair that costs somewhere between $3,000 and $6,000 out of pocket. On a truck you are still making payments on a truck you bought because you thought you were getting the smart, efficient, modern choice. Now think about what that does to the dealer. That buyer comes back angry, not just frustrated, angry, because the promise of EcoBoost efficiency was exactly the reason they skipped the diesel. They thought they were making the smart call. And now they are sitting in the service bay being told the repair is not covered and the number is not small. The dealer did not design that engine. The dealer did not create that failure, but the dealer is the one who has to have that conversation. And that buyer, in most cases, does not trust that dealership again. Ford has revised the EcoBoost across multiple generations. The problems have shifted and changed. But in 2026, if you are shopping a used F-150 with a high mileage EcoBoost and you skip the pre-purchase inspection, that is a gamble I would not take with my own money. Have you dealt with an EcoBoost repair? Did the warranty cover it, or did you pay out of pocket? Put the number in the comments, because a lot of people buying these trucks right now have no idea what they may be walking into. 5, the Lightning, $5 billion, and a lesson nobody wanted to learn. I want you to actually feel the scale of what happened here, because the number is almost too large to process. Ford bet billions on the F-150 Lightning. That is not an exaggeration, billions. A new dedicated factory in Michigan, the Rouge Electric Vehicle Center, built from the ground up for the Lightning, a battery supply chain built from scratch, a workforce trained specifically for EV production, a marketing campaign so aggressive they got a sitting president of the United States behind the wheel for a test drive. Ford was not quietly launching an EV option. Ford was declaring that the future of the American work truck was electric, and Ford was going to lead it. And then the market said no, not a quiet no, a loud one. Lightning inventory piled up at dealerships. Prices that launched at around $40,000 got cut, then cut again. Production was slashed in early 2024, reduced roughly by half as Ford scrambled to match supply to demand that was nowhere near what the projections promised. Ford's electric vehicle division, Model E, lost nearly $5 billion in 2024 alone. That is not cumulative. That is 1 year. And the Lightning was the centerpiece of those losses. But here is what really gets to the dealers. And I mean, this is the part that genuinely enrages the people who were closest to this. Dealers invested in charging infrastructure to sell the Lightning. Dealers hired EV certified technicians. Dealers ordered inventory based on Ford's projections. And when Ford pulled back, the dealers were left holding sunk costs in infrastructure, unsold units, and a customer base that had been told the Lightning was the future. And now they were watching it get quietly deprioritized. And the conversation with the Lightning buyer who came in 6 months ago, excited. Ready? The dealer has to explain that the vehicle they wanted is now lower priority, that the pricing shifted, that the ecosystem they were promised is not fully there. That conversation does not go well. And that buyer does not say, well, it is Ford's fault. That buyer looks at the dealer, because the dealer was the one who looked them in the eye and said, this is the future. The Lightning still exists. Ford is still building it. But the version of the Lightning that survives is not what was promised. And the financial crater it left behind is now a weight the entire company is carrying into every product decision it makes. If you own a Lightning right now, I genuinely want to know, how is the ownership experience? And are you concerned about where resale is heading? Because if you bought near launch pricing, that is a real and uncomfortable conversation worth having in the comments. 4, thousands of trucks in a parking lot in Kentucky, brand new, going nowhere. This one, I need you to actually picture this. At some point in 2023 and into 2024, satellite images and on-the-ground photos began circulating on automotive forums and were picked up by journalists, massive lots filled with brand new Ford Super Duty trucks, thousands of them, F250s, F350s, fully built, fully painted, sitting in holding areas in Kentucky, not at dealerships, not being delivered, just sitting. The reason, Ford had production quality issues significant enough that these trucks, which had been fully assembled, could not be shipped to dealers. They were built, they were finished, they just were not right. Rear axle component concerns were among the documented issues. Ford had to hold the trucks, identify the problems, and remediate before they could be cleared for sale. That sounds on paper like a responsible quality control decision, and in isolation, maybe it is. But let's talk about what actually happened to the people on the other end of this. A contractor in Georgia put a deposit on a custom Super Duty F350 in the spring. He needed it for a job starting in the fall. He ordered early specifically to have it in time, and then his dealer called to explain that the truck was ready, built, sitting in Kentucky, and could not be released. Not a production delay, not waiting to be built. Built, sitting there, unavailable. That job started without the truck he ordered for it. That contractor is not one story. That is hundreds of stories. Real businesses with real deadlines, real contracts, real financial consequences, all held up by a quality failure that Ford did not see coming at scale. And the dealer in that situation is trapped in a way that is genuinely difficult to understand from the outside. The dealer cannot release the truck. The dealer cannot give a firm date. The dealer can only explain and apologize and explain again. The dealer becomes the face of a failure they had absolutely no part in creating. And when the truck finally arrives and the customer picks it up, the relationship that should have started with excitement has already started with frustration, delays, and broken promises. That first impression does not disappear. Ford eventually cleared the backlog, but the damage to dealer relationships and customer trust did not clear with it. And the question that dealers were asking privately and some publicly is simple. How does a company with Ford's resources and manufacturing history allow quality failures significant enough to ground thousands of finished trucks simultaneously? That is not a minor slip. That is a systemic failure. And the dealer had to be the one to deliver the news. 3, the dealer breaking point and why it matters to you. There is a moment in every crisis when the people closest to the customer stop being company advocates and start being honest. That moment is happening at Ford dealerships right now. Not everywhere, not every dealer, but enough that the pattern is visible to anyone paying attention. Ford dealers, particularly those serving commercial and fleet customers, have been absorbing a compound problem for the past 2 years. The production issues created inventory gaps. The inventory gaps hurt their sales metrics and their compensation structures. The lightning losses created deep uncertainty about Ford's strategic direction. The tariff-driven price increases pushed buyers out of the market. And through all of it, the support from Dearborn has been, in the words of dealer representatives who have spoken publicly, inadequate. Goodwill programs that do not match the scale of the problems. Escalation pathways that resolve slowly or not at all. Price adjustments passed down to dealers to absorb without adequate compensation. A corporate communication style that dealers describe as defensive when they are looking for collaborative problem solving. And here is the thing about dealer morale that almost nobody talks about in automotive coverage. The dealer is the buyer's only point of contact with the brand. The buyer does not call Ford corporate when something goes wrong. The buyer calls the dealer. The dealer is the one who fights or does not fight for your warranty claim. The dealer is the one who decides whether you get a loaner or sit and wait. The dealer is the one who advocates on your behalf when a repair is borderline covered. And right now, a portion of that dealer body is demoralized, overextended, and operating without the corporate support they need to do that job well. The dealer did not set the sticker price. The dealer did not design the quality failure. The dealer did not write tariff policy. The dealer did not decide to build trucks in Kentucky and then hold them there. But the dealer is the one sitting across from the buyer, answering every question those decisions created. Why is this truck so expensive? The dealer answers, "Why did I just hear about another quality issue on this model?" The dealer answers, "Why is the payment over $1,000 a month?" The dealer answers, "Why has my custom order been delayed 3 times?" The dealer answers, and if the answers are not strong enough, the buyer walks. That is the fallout. It does not stay at corporate, it lands at the dealership every single time. Have you been through a frustrating Ford dealer experience in the last year or two? Not the sale, the service, the repairs, the warranty, the parts wait. Put it in the comments, because the volume of those stories is data, and data matters. 2, the Super Duty reputation problem, and it is spreading fast. The Ford Super Duty is not just a product line, it is a cultural institution. For contractors, farmers, ranchers, fleet operators, and the tradespeople who built America's infrastructure, the Super Duty was not just a truck you bought, it was the truck. The one you chose because you could not afford for it to fail. The one that had to show up on Monday and still be running on Friday after everything you put it through. That reputation was earned over decades. It was real, and it is now under more pressure than at any point in the history of the nameplate. The Kentucky holding situation was not an isolated incident. The quality control challenges that created it were symptomatic of a broader manufacturing consistency problem that Ford has been working through across the Super Duty line. And the information economy we live in, where a contractor in Idaho can read a forum post from a contractor in Florida within hours, means that word travels fast. The consensus among serious work truck buyers, the people who buy based on reliability data and not brand loyalty alone, is shifting. Ram has been gaining, GMC has been gaining, and the people defecting are not casual buyers who had a minor inconvenience. They are fleet managers who run 30 or 40 trucks and made a cold procurement decision. They are commercial operators whose income depends on uptime. These are people who bought into the Super Duty identity, had an experience that did not match the promise, and switched. And when they switch, they tell their peers. Fleet managers talk to other fleet managers. A single fleet decision can represent 50 trucks over a purchase cycle. Once those managers switch and the new trucks perform, they do not come back. They become advocates for the brand they switched to. They post in the industry groups. They become the ones who shake their heads when someone mentions the Super Duty. The reputation damage compounds in ways that do not show up in quarterly reports immediately, but it eventually becomes undeniable. And this is where the crisis starts spreading beyond Ford's own walls. Used Super Duty values are softening. Buyers who paid a premium for the Super Duty specifically because the resale held strong are trading in and getting numbers they did not expect. And softer used values mean the financial case for paying full new truck prices gets harder to make, which feeds directly into the single biggest problem on this entire list. A giant can still limp. A giant can still feel pain. And right now, Ford's truck business is feeling pressure from every direction simultaneously. What comes next is the most uncomfortable part. 1, the price wall. This is where everything breaks. Let me be direct about this because the automotive industry has been dancing around it for 2 years and nobody wants to say it plainly. The price of a Ford truck, any Ford truck that a working person actually wants to drive, has crossed a line that a very large portion of the traditional Ford buyer base cannot afford to cross. Not comfortably, not without genuine financial strain, not without a 7-year loan on a vehicle that starts depreciating the moment it leaves the lot. Here is what the numbers look like in 2026. An F-150XL, the base trim that most buyers do not actually want because it lacks basic comfort features, starts in the low to mid 30s. An F-150XLT, the first trim most buyers genuinely consider, is $40,000 to $48,000, depending on configuration. An F-15 Lariat, which a few years ago was considered a reasonable mid-range choice, is landing in the $50,000 to $60,000 range when equipped the way most people actually want it. An F-250 Super Duty Lariat is $60,000 to $70,000. An F-350 Platinum pushes past $85,000. And on top of all of that, layered onto prices that were already elevated, tariff-driven cost increases are adding real money to the transaction. Not abstract money, your money. And here is the part Ford will not say out loud. those tariffs do not stay in Washington. They move into parts, they move into materials, they move into production costs, they move into sticker prices, they move into monthly payments, and eventually they walk right into the dealership sitting in the buyer's back pocket, invisible, unnamed, but absolutely real. Ford absorbed some of the hit, suppliers absorbed some, but a meaningful share of that cost is now inside the transaction price the buyer is looking at. And the buyer does not know exactly how much because nobody is explaining it clearly. Think about the actual buyer Ford built its truck business on, not the weekend lifestyle buyer, not the person who just wants something that looks tough in a suburban driveway, the electrician who uses his truck as a job site vehicle every day, the plumber who runs tools out of his bed, the farmer who needs to move equipment, the small contractor who bids jobs and calculates overhead to the dollar. These are not wealthy buyers shopping for a status symbol. These are working people making what is essentially a business purchase. And a business purchase at $60,000, financed over 7 years at current rates with uncertain resale value and an elevated repair risk if something goes wrong, is a purchase that an increasing number of those buyers are doing the math on and walking away from. And the math is brutal, not the friendly showroom math, not the monthly payment math that somehow makes 7 or 8 years of financing feel normal. Real math, insurance, interest, taxes, fees, fuel, tires, repairs, depreciation. That is not a truck purchase. That is a long-term financial relationship with a machine. And more buyers are looking at that relationship and saying, wait a second, what exactly am I getting into here? That is exactly where the dealer feels it. The showroom can look perfect. The truck can be polished. The salesperson can talk towing, horsepower, torque, comfort, technology, capability. But if the buyer looks at the real transaction number and goes quiet, the deal is already dying. And dealers are watching that happen more and more. Buyers come in, sit down, look at the numbers with fees and financing added, and leave. Not to buy a Ram, not to buy a GMC. They leave without buying a truck at all. They fix the old one another year. They buy used. They find a way to make the current vehicle work. Because at some point, people stop stretching. And that point for a lot of buyers is here. Affordability concerns have become the dominant story in Ford's truck business right now. Not just analyst notes and press releases, dealer conversations, the showroom floor. Ford is still a massive business. The F-Series is still one of the most important vehicle lines in America. But the pressure is real and it is visible. Prices squeezing buyers, quality concerns squeezing trust, tariffs squeezing costs, dealer economics squeezing margins. And through all of it, Ford still has to convince the customer that the truck is worth it. That is a hard sales pitch. Here's the question I want to leave with every Ford truck owner watching this. If you had to make that purchase today, knowing what you know now, would you sign that deal again? Not pandemic prices, not 3 years ago. Today's price, today's interest rate, today's insurance, today's repair costs, today's trade-in value, would you do it? That question splits Ford owners straight down the middle every single time. A lot of people love their trucks. Fewer people love the deal they had to sign to get them. And that gap is exactly where Ford's crisis lives. Built Ford tough still means something, but it does not mean buyers will ignore the math. It does not mean buyers will ignore quality concerns. It does not mean buyers will ignore the fact that alternatives are waiting across the street. Trust has to be earned again and again, especially when the vehicle costs serious money. And right now, Ford is not earning it fast enough. This is how a crisis spreads. Not with one explosion, not with one dramatic collapse. One sticker shock, one quality hold, one delayed custom order, one repair bill that was not supposed to happen on a truck this new. One contractor in Georgia waiting on a truck that is sitting built and finished in a Kentucky lot. One lightning buyer watching resale values decline. One dealer trying to explain why the monthly payment is what it is. One buyer doing real math and walking out the door, one at a time. And Ford is hoping you do not put all of those ones together before you sign. If you own a Ford truck, drop your honest experience in the comments. Did the truck deliver what Ford promised? Did your dealer fight for you when something went wrong? Or did you feel like you were on your own? Your story is not just your story. It is the picture that Ford does not want people to see.